Is there really any other character in the Star Wars universe, or even yet in any other cinematic universe, that has suffered as much as Anakin Skywalker, aka Darth Vader? Welcome back to another video, fellas, and today I'll explain why Anakin Skywalker, later known as Darth Vader, is the most tragic character ever. So are you ready? Let's go! If we took a shallow approach to explain his story in simple words, I could just say that Anakin Skywalker was a slave who was liberated, then became a Jedi Knight who failed to become a Jedi Master, and so he turned to the dark side and became Darth Vader, and then he only redeemed himself just before his death. So now that I gave you a quick synopsis about Anakin's story, in case you were not familiar with it, let's dig into the reasons that make him one of the most tragic and heartbreaking stories ever in cinematic history. Darth Vader is probably one of those very few villains that even though he projects a chilling sense of dread and fear, you still have the tendency to sympathize with him, and here's why. First off, Anakin is presented as noble and as a tragic hero. He starts off living in poverty and basically pretty much a slave, and then suddenly he has the opportunity to strive to become a Jedi Knight. He then quite quickly solidifies himself as one very respected person of the Intergalactic Society and quickly becomes one of the youngest members of the Jedi Council thanks to his close connection to Chancellor Palpatine. This expedition of Anakin's success contributes to why his once bright future ambitions become a part of his tragedy. His big potential to become one of the most powerful members of the Jedi Council makes it even more tragic. Because the awareness that there was the opportunity for Anakin Skywalker to face a future of great achievement serves as a hard reminder that his fate is worth feeling sorrow over. Anakin had the weight of being the chosen one on his shoulders, and that made Anakin view himself above the others, which in my opinion was his tragic flaw. His pride and arrogance consume him, and they blind him from the realization that his actions aren't immune to consequence. His self-image of supremacy is instrumental to his fall. He cannot tear himself away from believing that there are other points of view besides his own. Ultimately, Anakin's ignorance of reality is at the top of his self-destruction. Anakin Skywalker is the proof that emotions can become so ungovernable, so much that they could cloud the rationale around thoughts that lead to actions. And fear is the first emotion to truly hold a dictating grip over Anakin. Aside from his sensitivity to the Force, the Jedi are keen to note the overpowering sense of fear that controls Anakin. The lack of coping or direction given to him by the Jedi Order allowed Anakin to become more skeptical to the threats of allowing his fear to win. While the Jedi inform Anakin that there is no emotion, there is peace, it doesn't provide him with the guidance of tackling his emotional instability. During the prequel trilogy, Anakin's fear transitions into a form of hatred, elevating his anxiety into something beyond unshakable anger. There is a greater external emotional reaction that leads to the escalation of his actions. He falls out of touch with reality. However, in Star Wars The Clone Wars, Anakin is presented as a calm, cool, and collected Jedi war general. The animated series provides a glimpse of how good Anakin once was when keeping himself under his own control. He was revered as a powerful, respected leader before the anger that he had buried away came back to the surface. And now, here's how it gets more tragic. Palpatine used Anakin's lack of self-control to manipulate him, and so a sense of helplessness overcame Anakin. The hatred that Palpatine encouraged Anakin to allow himself was rooted in his suffering. That suffering was rooted internally as he battled his own morality against external forces that controlled how he perceived the world around him. The tragedy is found in the fact that Skywalker's transformation into Darth Vader is involuntary.
He must live! No! What have I done?
Due to the shortcomings in being able to control himself and his emotions. And now, for the most tragic part, when Anakin gives in and accepts his fate of becoming Darth Vader. Not only does Anakin turn against Obi-Wan after accusing him of influencing Padme to also turn against him, but betrays their relationship in a moment of absolute weakness. Due to his own rage, Anakin inadvertently contributes to killing his own wife through her heartbreak during childbirth. However, his consent to becoming Darth Vader was in exchange for Padme's guaranteed survival. So, he is deceived by what seems to be a good exchange, and he is misled by unfulfilled affirmations that his self-sacrifice will result in the well-being of his wife and twin children. And nothing of that happened, basically. Anakin is under the deluded impression that his actions will eventually honor the greater good of his loved ones, despite facing Obi-Wan in direct combat. He betrays his closest friend in hopes that somehow he can save others, and ultimately, the tragedy found in Anakin's willingness to rebrand himself as Darth Vader is that he eventually betrayed himself. Anakin forsake his true self and basically surrendered the capability of becoming great without having to turn to the dark side, something that was in his potential. To sum up the tragedy of Anakin Skywalker, he gave up himself and his beliefs in a desperate act of love, and all he ever blindly intended was to protect the ones he loved. He failed to do so even though he sacrificed everything for it, and in the end, he was left with nothing but anger, sadness, and contempt. And that, fellas, is why, in my opinion, Anakin Skywalker becoming Darth Vader is one of the most tragic arcs in history. What is your opinion, fellas? You agree with this? Let us know in the comments below. And last, don't forget to smash like and subscribe if you're still watching. Until the next one, have an amazing time and I'll see y'all later.
Master, kill Master. No, Master. Master. Master Obi-Wan. Master Yoda. Master Windu. Obi-Wan's gonna kill me.